And we are live. Welcome to the Whatever Podcast, coming to you from Santa Barbara, California. I'm your host, Brian Atlas. I'm joined today by my guest, Laird Hamilton. Welcome.
Thank you.
Laird is a big wave surfer and pioneer in the world of action water sports. He co-invented tow and surfing. Along with his wife, Gabrielle Reese, he is the co-founder and co-creator of Extreme Performance Training, as well as Laird Superfood. Additionally, he is an author of 2 books, an actor, a model. He also has great hair, great flow. So Laird, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about you is you never competed in pro surfing. Do I have that right? Maybe you did a couple competitions when you were younger, but...
Yeah, I definitely didn't go the conventional route.
Yeah.
I think that's confusing actually for people when they ask me about if I've ever been in contests. And I mean, I've done some windsurfing stuff. We did speed sailing and some other sailing stuff. I've done paddleboard races and stuff like that. I like, time is a nice, increment of measurement.
Right. Can we just have you scoot the microphone a little closer? Or yeah, that's
Sure.
perfect. And I guess that makes you a bit of an anomaly in the sport because, I mean, most notable and well-known surfers are professional surfers. And you've managed to kind of carve out quite a name for yourself. Any thoughts on that?
Well, when I first started surfing, surfing in contests was only part of surfing, right?
Yeah.
And so half of surfing was free surfers. I mean, people like Jerry Lopez were really known for surfing, being a master at pipeline, and you've had surfing is unique in that sense that there is an artistic aspect to it, and there's a kind of a, it's more like painting or music. And so it'd be like, having a music contest. People win music contests, but, if people like your performance, you can so then later on when I would say competition began to kind of, be the dominant part of it, that's where it became more confusing, I think, for people. But yeah, I always just thought that if you could perform at at a certain level in giant surf, I thought that was pretty more important than beating another guy in the heat. For me personally, it was more about, how do you perform in the extreme conditions, and then ultimately let people decide if they like your performance or not. Like that seems to be something that seems to make more sense to me in the way my mind works.
Got it. And we actually, I mean, maybe some of the viewers aren't familiar with who you are. We've got a video of you at Teahupoo.
Yes, sir.
Great, fantastic surf spot in Tahiti, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is from 20 years ago. Eric, if you can go ahead and just pull that up, and we want to get your reaction to this.
Okay.
Was this your first time ever surfing Teahupoo? Or had you surfed
it was
it before?
my first trip to Tahiti,
Okay.
and I had ridden Teahupoo a couple of times in the preceding days to that particular day. So I had already had a couple. It wasn't like I just went straight out there and the very first wave I caught was that wave. I think I might have not made it if that was true. So. But yeah, no, that was after a couple of days, but my first trip to Tahiti.
Okay, nice. But that wasn't the biggest wave you've surfed. I mean, you've surfed some pretty massive waves. So, I mean, I know there's different scales,
Yeah.
in Hawaii, what's 3 foot in Hawaii is something totally different than 3 foot in California.
I mean, now they've kind of
normalized.
They've normalized it just I think just for safety reasons, and just so there's one kind of common voice. We still, the surfers still call the waves differently than we still. I mean, the truth is that in general, Hawaii's surf is big so often. we feel uncomfortable saying it's 50 feet when it's 25 feet. So we call it 25 foot. And so that measurement is, it's, depends on the wave. The wave in Tahiti, I think why that was such a monumental, represented kind of a feat was because the unrideableness of that wave. So that wave is unrideable without, first of all, being towed in. And even if you are towed in, there's a very good chance that you won't make it. So I think that was why that wave had impact. We've ridden, waves with, a lot taller than that. I always describe waves like dogs, and you have little dogs, little yelpers, little chihuahuas, and
Right.
you got pit bulls that aren't the biggest, but might be the most ferocious. You have Great Danes, and you just have all these different types of characteristics in animals, which are the waves are the same thing. The waves have every different spot, every different swell, every different wave. It has a different characteristic, which is more, I would say, is more easily understood when you think about dogs. You think about, would you rather have a little tiny, dog biting your leg or a pit bull, or would you, it's like a Labrador. Like there's big waves that are actually kind of sweet. They're friendly in comparison with other ones that are more aggressive. So, each one has its own unique characteristic.
Yeah. Which one would you say is like a Chihuahua? Like if there's any Chihuahua waves out there?
Yeah, it's probably in California.
Some California waves, okay.
Some California.
Some spots here in Santa
little
Barbara.
little yelper, or maybe there's a wave in Indonesia or something very. When I say Chihuahua, I mean something that's a little yelper. It might be little, but might be
got some bite or
got a little. Just thinking it's bigger than it is.
Yeah. Have you ever surfed here in Santa Barbara?
I have.
Yeah.
If you call Rincon Santa Barbara,
it's kind of in between Ventura and
it's but that's an amazing wave. So I rode that years ago. A friend of mine got me to drive up from Orange County when I was down there when I first spent some time in California, and we drove up, and it was a huge, enormous swell there, and enormous swell for there, and we rode some really, really amazing waves at Rincon, and then what I didn't realize is that what an anomaly that was. I know Rincon gets good fairly often, but this was something out of the ordinary.
Right. Have you surfed Sandspit at all here in Santa Barbara?
I know it, but I haven't.
Never surfed it?
I think it was, we went there one time, but it was pretty small.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I surfed it because it was too small to be probably what it really is.
Yeah. It only breaks maybe a couple times a year, and it needs a very specific sort of swell. And
yeah. It's very
crowded too.
Yep.
Super crowded.
Yep.
It breaks along the breakwater. So,
yeah.
So you split your time between Malibu and Kauai, is that right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So kind of not so much related to surfing, but what advice would you give to someone who is considering moving to Hawaii? Don't do it, or because there's definitely, I've heard some controversy there with, people that do live in Hawaii. I know there's obviously different islands, but it's not a decision that you should, I think, make lightly to move to Hawaii.
Well, during the pandemic, a lot of people ran to paradise. So they ran to Hawaii. I think living on an island in general just has I think people glorify it, more often than not, and don't realize that it's different. Being on an island is different. Being in Hawaii is different than the continent. It's just, there's so many aspects of it that make it I would say if you're gonna move to Hawaii, you should probably go there first and spend some time and see if you actually want to be there. Because I know people that have moved there, and then a year later they're like, well, you can't get everything you want from Amazon, and it's hard to fix your thing, and it's just a different lifestyle. So you have to be okay with being on an island, and so I grew up on an island. So for me, I don't feel like island fever. People get the island fever where they just, it's hard for them. So I think you have to be the right person. You know,
Yeah.
you have to. There are cultural differences, of course. There's the only time people really have any kind of an issue when they move to Hawaii is when they try to bring their customs with them, and they don't learn how to adapt within it. You know, we have some real. There's a lot of respect that we have for one another in Hawaii. There's the way you conduct yourself, and so you don't stare, you don't thing. You're going to see, you're going to cut somebody on the road and maybe throw a gesture. You're going to see the guy in an hour at some spot, and the guy's going to be like, "Hey, what was that? What are you doing?" And so, and for a lot of people, they're not ready for that kind of confrontation. So, or they're just not ready to be accountable for their behavior. And so there's a lot of accountability for your behavior when you live in Hawaii. I mean, I like it, but
Sure.
for some people it's a shock.
Yeah. Yeah. And you weren't born in Hawaii, but you pretty much lived there most of your life.
I would say it was a bad happenstance, like I just happened to not be born. I've been in Hawaii since I was a child, like months old, I don't know if they even had diapers back then, but I've been there since I was a child. And so I was born in San Francisco, and my mother took me to Hawaii. My brother, who's 5 years younger, he was born there. I think, being born there would have worked, for me a little bit, I would say, but not being born there worked for me too. It just maybe wasn't as comfortable.
And when did you start surfing? I mean,
my mom was around surfing. So my mom was around Gidget, one of the original surf girls, when she was a young woman in Southern California, and all her friends were surfers. Her friends also made surf films. And so I was just around surfing from a very young age, and then I'd get pushed into waves when I was, 3, I'd be pushed into little tiny waves. I mean, you don't really start being able to really surf probably until you're 5 or 6, like that seems to be when you're actually have enough fortitude to be able to swim and paddle and that kind of stuff. So, but I had my first board when I was 6 years old, and rest of the time I used broken pieces of surfboards. There was no boogie boards when I was a kid, and surfboards weren't so abundant. I mean, now it's crazy how many surfboards there are and available, and every kid has 3. And for me, getting a surfboard, that was something special.
Yeah, so you're how old are you? You're 58?
Yes, sir.
You're like in insane shape.
Thank you.
At 58.
Yeah.
But
more work. It's a work in process.
Yeah.
Continuing.
So you've pretty much been surfing most of your life, like over 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Have you noticed, and I noticed something interesting the other day, have you noticed that surfing is maybe waning in popularity in terms of the broader human population?
I mean, there's a crazy statistic which I just recently heard, which may or may not be true, but I heard something like 1 million or 2 million people during the pandemic
picked it up.
Yeah,
I can see that
maybe as a reaction to, or maybe the free time.
Yeah.
The maybe the free time not working. Maybe as a reaction to
Sure.
being in lockdowns. I don't know which thing it was, but it seems like there's a lot. I mean, there's no shortage when you look at the lineup.
Yeah. Because Eric, can you pull up? There's a Google Trends chart. I don't know if you look here. So
yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be bad if
that's
if
maybe
surfing
a good
was going
thing.
down. I mean, the truth is that surfing, the industry of surfing, and I don't know if this is actual surfers or not, but the surfing industry, the lifestyle, which is where all the clothing companies were making their money, that's down.
Yeah.
That's down. All the apparel companies in surfing, I mean, a lot of them don't exist anymore, or they're just not at the kind of growth and the kind of, I mean, the way we know this is that to be a sponsored surfer right now is more difficult than it was in the 80s and 90s.
Wow.
So, there's still opportunity, of course, but there's a lot of people surfing, and a lot more people have been learning, and I know that because I have friends that make boards, I have friends that teach surfing, but you have to include other things like hydrofoiling and stand-up paddling and all these other disciplines as well, as because they're all part of surfing. So sometimes I think we get into a specific discipline within surfing and we say, oh yeah, well this discipline, it's not as popular as it was, but we're talking about riding waves in the water. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of different disciplines.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get into some of those other disciplines that you did kite surfing, you did windsurfing, hydrofoils. Definitely want to get into that stuff. I wanted to just go back to Hawaii really quick. So there's a pecking order in surf lineups, and from what I've heard,
in the world.
Yeah, that's true. There's definitely hierarchies
everywhere.
Yes.
Every surf spot has a pecking order.
Yeah,
which actually is very useful. It's a very and like all pecking orders, there's always some abuse because and how do those pecking orders get established? Well, normally they get established from the best surfers. So the best surfers usually have priority. It doesn't hurt if you're a tough guy too. That doesn't hurt as well. But when there's no pecking order, then there's chaos in the lineup. Then there's a problem. And so there's always a few guys that are willing to run. I mean, run the lineup. A lot of that kind of pecking order in the waves came from Hawaii. So Hawaii, I would say, was part of the birthplace of that, because it's also, surfing is a Polynesian sport. Hawaii was birth surfing, so it also felt all of the constraints, but also the pressure from people coming to surf and having all that kind of all those, there's a great saying, there's only a problem when the transient users don't obey the local customs. And so when you have people coming to Hawaii, especially when I was a kid, I mean, if you were a surfer in the world, you came to Hawaii to to prove your stuff, to ride to ride these waves, and so that's where a lot of it got established. And then it's everywhere in the world. I mean, I was in Costa Rica at Pavoni's, a wave that's a famous wave in Costa Rica, and I had guys telling me where to go and who to do what and all that stuff, and that was pretty interesting. But it is it's all over the world, every lineup. I mean, part of it is because waves are a commodity. They're rare, and they're rare.
Finite resource.
They're rare.
Yeah.
They're I mean, a good day of surfing, a good wave is, and it seems like never more rare than now, just given what the weather's been, the weather patterns have been like. So yeah, there's I mean, when you wait all year, for a good day and it comes, and then you got somebody, and then a lot of it's out of safety. Just people don't know what they're doing. You're like, somebody has to say, hey, it's like the road has a policeman and has, I mean, you actually have to go to a class to get a license, right? Where surfing, you just get a board and paddle out, and you can definitely be in the way and be dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and there's a whole etiquette to surfing, and definitely some of our viewers they've never surfed a day in their life. So can you kind of just maybe quickly explain etiquette and also just localism, just to give what we were just talking about a bit more context for the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, the localism is, I mean, these are the people, these spots are, imagine you grew up someplace and you surf this place every single day, so you're the local. You're and whoever lives near there and surfs that wave or has moved there and has spent the time, it's the people that spend the time on, in the ocean at that spot are the locals. And so whoever they are, and so that's the, those are the guys that have priority. So, and there's a place to be to catch a wave. There's certain places to be in the water that makes it a better, there's positions not to be. If someone else is, further into the wave than you are, then you don't have priority unless the guy paddles around you. I mean, there's a whole an etiquette to understand that actually takes some time initially, unless you're a good surfer, and then you've grown up in it and you instinctually know when you're breaking the rules or not. And so, and there has to be that, right? There has to be some kind of, there has to be some structure in that, because I mean, every other, in a basketball court, you have lines, you have positions, you can only be in the key so long, and all this stuff is the same thing. It's like the same, it's the same kind of thing. It's just these lines aren't so obvious. These keys, these positions, these mistakes are not so obvious because you don't have a referee out there blowing a whistle, and you don't
exactly.
So you don't have that. So but it comes quickly. I mean, you can get, and listen, it's usually when you go out, if you go to a place and you come in there not having respect for that, it's not the place that you surf all the time, and you behave in a certain way, then you can't be surprised if you evoke a reaction from people. That's part of what's, and there's some places where there's just, people are just unfriendly. They're not polite, and they're just looking for it. And those are different lineups. So it's back to human behavior. Not everybody's conducting themselves like how they should. And, I mean, listen, I've surfed all over the world. And I mean, we always talk about usually the people that are the most unfriendly have the worst waves. So it's almost like it's a byproduct of not having good waves and being frustrated. So they're the ones that are the most uptight. And when it's, the bigger it gets, the friendlier people get. When the surf's giant, people are friendly and they're very nice. And so, and I always like that. I just thought that that's like this thing that happens when danger arrives, right? When you have danger, people seem to get very nice when things are dangerous, which is nice. It's like, okay, good. Then everybody conducts themselves more politely. And listen, if someone's out and they do something that endangers you, that might upset you. If the first time, if the second time, that becomes, it's a little bit like baseball. We say 3 strikes and you're out. It's a little bit like if some guy does something 3 times and endangers somebody's, well-being, then he might be asked to go in or just sit on the side until he can, behave better.
Yeah. Where would you say, you mentioned there's some spots where it's very negative, very nasty. Are there any places you've traveled to where it was just much more intense as far as the localism goes? Or
well, like I use Pavonis as an example. I use a place like that, where there was, the guys were hostile, and not really, I mean, maybe they're trying to protect it. Maybe they get bombarded by so many different things. I mean, you go to Australia, and the Australians are pretty protective of their lineups, and they have a lot of people too. So that also forces a certain, you go to Surf Malibu, Surf Rider, you go down there, you're going to have a couple guys that are going to be barking, and they're going to be. So I think when you have any place that's really crowded, that's a good wave, because you're just as a surfer, a good surfer, and that's your spot, like your spot that you surf every day, your tolerance is going to be real low. You're not going to be tolerating a lot of it because you have to do it so often. So often you're going to deal with people that are learning, that don't know what they're doing, which, like I said, once, twice, but some guys, they're good enough to actually be a problem. So then you have that. So then there's a whole other, and for me personally, that just it takes a lot of the fun away of it. I find myself searching for different things and avoiding those places just because it takes you out of it. Like I grew in Hawaii, we have a wave called Pipeline. It's one of the, premier waves in the world. It's one of the most aggressive waves, and it gets there's a very powerful lineup out there, and that, I mean, that's another wave where the aggression and that sometimes outrides just the pure, separation from the surfing, and that takes away. It's just you just have a different mindset. It's like you're going into battle versus just, I'm going to ride waves. Those are two different kind of animals, and it's just a different, those are, in a way, they're two different experiences. If you go to some place with a couple of friends and ride some incredible waves, That's a different experience than going to a place with 100 guys out and, and banging elbows.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten into any fights
Have I gotten any fights?
in the water related to surfing?
Grew up fighting in the water.
Yeah.
Grew up fighting in the water.
Yeah, because I saw in the documentary about you, Take Every Wave, it's mentioned that you just kind of paddled out to Pipeline, and I don't know if there's some exaggeration there, but which is notorious for being a pretty localized spot, and you kind of just went for it. You kind of just didn't care.
I grew up right there.
Oh, like, so you were
I grew up on the beach at Pipeline when I was a baby, and so I had a particular, I would say, like I grew up there. So that part I had behind me. Then it was just establishing your position in the pecking order. So you just have to, and the truth is if you're willing to do, if you're going to go for waves and do certain things in the ocean, you're going to get a priority. If you're going to go for waves that other people don't want, then you kind of get to choose the waves you want. It's a little bit part of that part and parcel that goes together. And so, and so, yeah, I had to, that's a place that you had to go and establish your, a mutual respect between fellow surfers. So I went to Pipeline because was raised there when I was a kid. I moved away and then I went back, and, I got the respect of guys like Dane K. Aloha and Johnny Boy Gomes, and we respected one another once we figured out that we were there for the same reasons, and that we were willing to do go the distance to get the waves, but then everybody else disappears. So you'll have a couple people that you acknowledge, they acknowledge you, and then the rest of it you just have to focus on the surfing. And so, but like I said, that's one of the things that is a necessity. It's a necessity for those environments, because without that there's a breakdown, and it's like not having leaders. If you don't have a leader, it's a problem. Because then everybody's fighting over which direction to go, and then people get hurt and stuff gets wasted, and it seemed, and everything has a time and a place, and it was different then than it is now. Now it's a little more
relaxed.
I wouldn't say relaxed. There's more people than ever, but the group is used to the volume, and it's still about the quality of the surfer. If you have Kelly Slater or John Flores or one of the best surfers in the world go out to a surf break, most of the time people will give respect and be like, hey, yeah, you put more time in the ocean, and your ability is such that, go, like, ride these waves, which it should be.
Yeah.
It should be like that. There should be a reward for dues paid,
Yeah, definitely. What would you say are your top 3 favorite surf spots? I could expand it.
The thing is that obviously Jaws Jaws on Maui has a personal thing. It was a wave that we kind of established as a surfable wave. No one was surfing it before. We spent years riding with just a group of us, so that has a special place in my heart. There's no doubt one of the most amazing waves in the world. Teahupoo is another one of those things, another one of those waves that is a magic wave that does some beautiful things. There's a few other ones that battle. Honolulu Bay is an incredible wave. There's for me now it's more about what we're doing instead of where.
Right.
So I'm at a place where I'm really, it's like I go to Peru and when I can, and we ride waves for 7 minutes and do stuff that has never been done. So that's what it's more about at this point. But those waves, Teahupoo and Pipeline and Jaws, those are Those are special.
Yeah. Have you surfed? I think it's called Nazare in
Nazare
in Portugal. Sorry,
Yeah.
butchered the pronunciation there.
Yeah.
But you've surfed there.
I have.
Nice. That's
That's a unique wave because of what it does. It does something unique where two waves join together, so it gets really tall, like it stands up.
Is it a wedge?
And
or?
it's a wedge.
Okay.
And it breaks against a cliff, so for spectators it's incredible to watch because you get to see the whole thing from a position that you would never get to be in because of where the cliff is and where you get to sit. I mean, as a surfer, without toe in, it wouldn't really be what it is. I mean, Nazare exists because of toe ins, right? So without getting towed in, that wave would not be even on the radar. But toe in has created that spot. I mean, it's actually good for surfing when it's smaller, but it's not the Nazare that everybody knows of, which is the wave that's depicted in the 100-foot wave docu-series or whatever you want to call it. We went there and we foiled it, so we hydrofoil surfed it, and that was exciting.
Nice. And what would you say is, I don't know if you can measure in feet, but what's the biggest wave you've ever surfed?
Well, we've been in surf that we know that was 100 feet. Like we know we've been in waves that's somewhere between 80 to 100 feet high. There's no doubt. Just knowing what we know and that make it. I mean, what do they say? There are bigger waves in the sea than will ever be caught. And so, I never liked the bounty aspect. When they started when we had been riding Giant Surf for quite a few years, and then they started this bounty, like, biggest wave, double XL award for the biggest wave, and guys were just. I mean, I told somebody, go, you know why they stopped, bounties? Because you have amateur gunfighters trying to, capture professionals.
Yeah.
And so you send them in. I mean, now they've made the rules a little bit tighter so you don't just have it. But I mean, they're, guys were getting annihilated and breaking their legs and winning, but crashing too. So I think there's, I don't like that. I don't love that whole bounty thing, that concept, because of what it does, how it stimulates the kind of a recklessness that you might not do. I always say, I tell people, I go, listen, behave like you would if no one was watching and no one was out there. Right. No cameras, maybe you'll be lucky if your friend's there to rescue you, maybe not. So you better be ready to rescue yourself. Now tell me how you behave. When you get, big audiences, you get bounties, you get cameras, and then you get a different behavior, which I completely understand. I could say it happens to me,
Is there one wave that just stands out to you as the best wave that you've ever ridden?
I mean, I have a saying, never let your memories be bigger than your dreams. And so
I like that.
I put those things behind me a lot. I don't have I can tell you about some of the horrendous crashes that I've had.
Let's talk about wipeouts. Worst wipeout.
Bad wipeouts. And those, you remember those a lot better. The successes kind of blend together. The failures, those ones stick out pretty clear. I had one, they were making Point Break 2, and they were shooting it, and I hadn't been back to Jaws for a few years, and I went there and was surfing and just did something that I wouldn't normally do, just kind of ignored the wave, and I knew it was like going to close out, and I went anyway kind of thing. It was a little bit like it was like a thing I was doing, and I just got folded in half and blown into the sky, and it's like I was like I didn't break something, but yeah, I'm no. I mean, the Teahupoo waves, those couple waves I had that morning, those waves are, but those part of it you remember them because they've been framed and printed and kind of put in your consciousness. But yeah, I've had a lot of really amazing waves, and I got more than 50 years at this, so there's a lot of it's amazing for the time. That's how I would describe it. And there's been a lot of, at a certain time, there was an amazing wave. And then a little bit later, at another time, there was an amazing wave. And then, you know, and then you just keep searching for those. And I think that's part of the, you know, that's one of the things about being a surfer is that you're on to the next, right? So it's really the continued pursuit, which I think is a good way to live because it kind of keeps you pursuing, but it's also, you're not, you know, leaning back and reminiscing that much.
Yeah. I kind of somewhat related to surfing because, well, I was watching a couple documentaries on you, some podcasts and stuff, and you've said that you've had a ton of injuries. I think a lot of them from surfing, but you've some other stuff too. Can you enumerate all the injuries you've had?Maybe, I don't know if you want to start from feet up or.
Well, I mean, I at one point I had close to 1,000 stitches before I ever had an operation. So I broke my left ankle at least 5 or 6 times, maybe more. Arch, broke the left arch in the foot, broke all the metatarsals in the other foot. And then I've had ACL, multiple knee surgeries. I had a hip replacement. I've had just laceration upon laceration. Spearhead boards go through my face. I've had boards, you know, speared my legs. I've had a lot of stitches. Got speared in the head by a board at Pipeline. Had 100, probably, I don't know, what seemed like 100 stitches. Just a big old speared. You know, I've had broken collarbone, broken hands, shoulder, broken shoulder.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've had some. I popped some ribs out of my back jumping off a cliff and kind of bruised one of my lungs. You know, it goes on.
Yeah.
There's just, but like I said, a lot of stitches, a lot of cuts, just from getting hit by boards, like just close to 1,000 stitches, before I ever had a operation. And then I had a hip replacement and yeah, it's part of the deal.
Any back or neck injuries?
I got hit on a ski. I had a jet ski land on me out of a wave. Get pitched over on a wave and land on my back, and compressed something in my back.
Jeez.
For a while, but nothing. Knock on wood. No broken back, but definitely compressed something and couldn't walk for a while.
Wow, that's a lot. So, sitting here right now, do you have pain? Do you have any chronic pain issues, or?
I mean, I feel pretty good today, but I also did heat and ice all morning, so that helped me out. So I'm in constant, I would say constant maintenance. You know, I'm constantly. I mean, my diet's kind of, low inflammation diet, but I'm always sore. I'm always hurt. I mean, that's just part of being alive. I think there's just always, because you're either hurt from lifting or the muscles are sore or you hit something. I mean, you're always crashing or doing something. So you're always it's either an injury or soreness from, some days less than others, some days, I think I think from all the years you get a certain level of, pain tolerance. You just kind of can. I mean, I really noticed that during when I had my hip replaced that the pain, the consistent pain was definitely, demotivating me. So once I got my hip fixed, I was like, wow, I didn't even realize how that chronic pain was, slowing me down.
And you mentioned heat and ice. And you did that today too. Yeah. Did you just drive down to Santa Barbara today, or?
I did. Yeah, I came up.
Okay, so you were icing or doing heat in Malibu.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So what's kind of your regiment for what did you do today, for example?
Oh, today's Sunday, and so we're just. Sometimes I'll do. I rode a little bit. I did like a 30-minute hill climb. I have these standing bikes, so you stand up on. And so I did a hill climb, and then I did rounds of heat and ice. Sunday's kind of a good day to do multiple rounds, and I'll do a excessively hot sauna with excessively cold. I mean, obviously just a big ice tub full of ice, and I'll go back and forth between that multiple times. And that seems to work really good just for recovery stuff. But the week, I mean, we're all the week consists of my training regimen consists of just a bunch of different things that we do. It's some we've kind of created, some we've created, and then we do breath work. We're always doing sauna and ice. That's kind of the foundation. Then a bunch of swimming stuff, lifting, cardio, riding, paddling. There's a lot of variety. I like that a lot. I think I like that type of training. I try not to get too regimented, in the sense of the regimentation really comes out and the discipline comes out of the consistency. But the variety for me is the key, just to always be working at using different stuff.
Got it. And you were actually, so I think it was in 2019, you were on the Joe Rogan podcast, and you guys talked pretty thoroughly about sauna and ice and all that stuff. And so you're actually one of the reasons that I got a sauna.
Awesome.
Yeah, I sauna.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I sauna 5 times a week. I'm in the pool 5 times a week. Not a huge fan of laps, but I'll do some like exercises and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And my sauna it's infrared though.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about that's not ideal on the Joe Rogan podcast. I guess your thoughts on infrared. I know that was a couple years ago, so I don't know if you.
I mean, at the time I didn't have a lot of information, but my biggest reason myself was just because of the using it with the ice, and when you're coming out of ice with when you're cold, it's hard to heat you up. It takes a little while. Like you'll heat up, like my sauna's at 220 or whatever, and so that's going to heat you up a lot quicker. So, and because we're doing contrast, I just think that's the part I really liked. I think that's the part that I know there's all this incredible these incredible benefits from infrared, and so long wave and short wave. I have a infrared bed that I just recently got, and so we've been using that, and I notice I notice the benefits. So yeah, the infrared it's for me was more to do with just when you're cold and getting warm again. Hard. It takes a while. Like you go there, I could be in there because I can be in the sauna for a hot sauna for 30 minutes before I break a sweat.
Wow.
If you're cold enough. So if you go sit in the ice tub for a real ice tub for 5 minutes, you come back in the sauna, you do that multiple times. By the time the second or third time you get in the sauna, you might just sit there and be like, you won't break a sweat. You'll just be sitting there for a half an hour, and you're wondering if it's on. Yeah. So.
Yeah, the infrared ones, they run at a much lower temperature. I think it's intended for you to stay in there for a longer period of time. But I've done both. I guess traditional dry sauna and then infrared. Any thoughts on wet sauna? I'm personally not a fan.
I think steam. I think hot steam, baths. Yeah. I mean, I think anything where you're heating the core up. I think that's the there's some crazy benefits to that. I mean, I always used to say, hey, why does grandma take a hot bath? It's like it's a tradition because there's benefits to heating up the core. So I don't really. A friend said, they're putting in a steam. I'm like, great, steams are hot. Those things get hot. Yeah. So I mean, I think however you're heating up.
It's better than nothing.
No, but good job. But I just think I don't know. I just like for me the traditional sauna with ice tub and water seems to be a nice. I just like that relationship, between the two. And you can have them. We end up having them outside and being able to go use them outside. And
right.
So it's hard to have your steam shower outside, as example. And so that's part of it too. And then you got a window, you look out, and there's just there's
in nature. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to get a sauna is I injured my back a couple years ago, fracture in my low back at L5S1, and I used to surf. I don't know, got a couple surfboards here, but I actually haven't surfed in, I think it's been nearly 7 years, and it was like my big passion, and maybe I could have done a little better with the physical therapy, but problem with my injury, it's called a spondylolisthesis. So anything that puts the back into extension, which is, I mean, you surf.
Paddling.
You're paddling.
Yeah.
People think surfing, it's up on the board. I mean, most of the time you're paddling.
It should be called paddling.
It
Laying
should.
and paddling.
And then the occasional 10 seconds.
Yeah, you get to stand up. Yeah.
10 seconds.
I talk about surfing. I said the main thing about surfing is that surfing is actually reading the water, understanding what waves are going to do. I go, the benefit is you get to stand up and right away. But I go, but the true art of it is really, first of all, getting out, catching the wave, and then also just understanding what the wave's going to do.
Yeah,
that's the biggest. That's the art of it.
Yeah, and I guess I was going to ask because I mean you've had a ton of injuries. You probably have a pretty large network of just people that are into physical performance, and maybe you can give me a referral after the show. But I was going to ask if you know anyone that they themselves have had some pretty severe back issues and they've gotten back into it, and if you have any advice for me.
I know a couple of people that have had some back stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's not so uncommon to have a back issue, and I think it varies on the person and what you're doing, but there's definitely some stuff that you can do. I'd gladly share some
awesome
people that I think would have good knowledge to help you. I mean, that's one thing I like about stand-up paddling is that at least you can be up and you don't have to
put the back in an extension. Yeah, I've thought about. I need to get back to it. I've been. Anyways.
Well, back in the water, just any way to be in the water, like body surf. Like we love body surfing. We body surf a lot. So I mean, we don't discriminate. We just want to be on waves, riding waves, whatever way that is.
Yeah, I'll look into it. What do you think is the future of surfing? I mean, there's wave pools. Maybe this is kind of a kooky idea. Surfing at night with night vision goggles. Have you thought about that?
Well, yeah, of course. There's probably not too many things we haven't thought about at some point. I at night with night vision goggles, I just hope they don't get blown off, like if you crash. I mean, night surfing's okay if the surf's really small.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the wave machines and the wave machine technology is just at the infancy, and I think it's, I think there can be some serious some serious waves created. They already have them. People, that'll be a different experience, obviously, than being in the ocean. I think that there's going to be ways to generate waves in the ocean that aren't environmentally harmful. I think that would be also interesting. I think that would be a pretty cool technology if you could just pump waves into a spot that's already a good spot and be able to have waves more often, more consistent. I think there's, obviously the different ways that there are. I think foiling is a big piece of the future. It already is here now and seems to be, gaining in popularity. So I think that's a big piece of it. Yeah.
Do you think, like you mentioned, potentially creating something in the ocean? Is anything like I heard something about artificial reefs? Is that maybe something?
People are already developing artificial reefs, but that's more based out of trying to help grow more reefs.
Okay.
So, but also, there's. You could put places, artificial reefs that would make waves so that you could surf, but you still need waves. So, and they have to be produced by a storm and so on. So that's where the lack of consistency. When you have a wave machine that pumps waves, then you can,
right.
And that seems to be. That'll be a whole different kind of sport. That'll be that'll be more like gymnastics or something. It'll be more predictable, and it'll be a different experience than, I have some guys I know that have been surfing and learning how to surf, and they go to the wave pool and then they go in the ocean, and it's a whole nother animal.
Have you gone to Kelly Slater's wave pool?
I've yet to make it. I've had 30 invites, and it just hasn't. The timing hasn't been right, and now I've almost not gone so often. I'm almost like, okay, I better not go then.
There's a whole bunch of other ones too. Have you surfed any or just never surfed one?
I've been on one of those little flow machines years ago, which were. It was fun, and I went to a crazy one in Vegas when they opened it up. We turned it up, and it smashed all the chairs at the Mandalay Bay.
Yeah.
And but no, not per se. The truth is that, my pursuit for riding giant surf for many years has just kept me from going anywhere except wherever there was going to be big waves, or doing things that were going to be supportive to help, put you in the condition to be able to do it. So the training and doing things that were conducive to, making you better at big wave riding kind of kept me from some of the fun.
Got it. We kind of on the future of surfing. Eric, can you pull up that photo of the guy? We want to get your reaction to this. So kind of like your thoughts on, whenever you're ready, Eric. So your thoughts on electric surfboards. I don't know if you've seen this photo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your reaction to...
They're amazing.
Yeah. Do you know what the name of this one specifically is?
Yeah, it's called a lift. It's called a lift.
A lift?
Yeah, the company's name is Lift.
Got it.
Lift Foils.
Okay.
And they make an electric one. They make ones for kiting, and they make them for surfing. And so we in fact we use that brand. It's a friend of mine that makes those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
and
Lift.
so that's an electric one that has a motor in it, and it's an electric hydrofoil. They're hydrofoil surfboards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that one just hadn't lifted up yet.
Okay.
So it'll lift up, and then it'll fly, and we use those a lot. We train with those because you can really practice at speed. You can go fast on them, like very fast, and so it helps you kind of stay in tune with going fast when you go into the big surf. That's the thing about small waves and big waves, right? Is the bigger the waves are, the faster you go, and that just changes the whole game. But yeah, that's an amazing device. Like it's a incredible, and you can go out when there's not a wave in sight and fly. Yeah, and it's fun.
Nice. Looks super fun. I've definitely seen a lot of some of the electric surfboards, and or I guess that's an electric hydrofoil, right? Yeah. A lot of them are not yet available for consumer purchases, but is Lift, can you? Oh yeah, you can buy them.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Awesome.
Yeah. In fact, there's a couple companies that make them. The Lift ones are those are the ones that I like the best of the ones I've ridden, and so those are. I mean, you can go out and there's people doing lessons all over that. I can't imagine there's not somebody in Santa Barbara that's giving lift lessons.
Yeah,
coming up, and and you go out and they put a helmet on you with some earphones, and they talk to you and help you learn how to fly. And people fly the first day, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I've seen people riding around in a couple different spots on some hydrofoils. Yeah. So.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's out here. So. Kind of a random question. What do you consider to be a kook?
I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes. I mean, I guess the best description of somebody that would be called a kook is somebody that's just not paying attention. Mm-hmm. I would just, if somebody said to me like, "What's a kook?" I go, "Well, it seemed like somebody who's just not paying attention, not." And it doesn't always mean that you don't know what you're doing. It just means that you're not paying attention. And if you don't know what you're doing, then maybe you think you're better than you are. So I think that's another part of the description of like, who would you call a kook? I go, well, somebody who thinks that they're better than they actually are.
Got it.
And which would, just endanger, they're endangering other people.
Has anybody ever called you that? I don't think
I've
you
been
are,
called
by the
probably
way.
every single thing that you could be called more than once.
Okay.
So I would say,
Okay.
They probably, I mean, it's.
I don't think you are, by the way.
No, I don't mind. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
It's okay. The bad thing is that when you're not and you are. So if somebody doesn't call you one, but you are one, I'd be more worried about that.
There you go. So when it comes to water sports, and we sort of talked about this, you played around with a bunch of different disciplines, regular surfing, towing in, windsurfing, kite surfing. Did you face any gatekeeping from the broader surf community for experimenting with these other disciplines? Because I do feel like with surfing, there is a little bit of that, you're riding this kind of board, you're out on a long board, this is kind of a short board,
That's an interesting thing because so there's a gentleman by the name of Brian Keolana, and he's a great Hawaiian waterman, and the family's long legacy of Hawaiian Ocean men that, you know, somewhere back in probably somewhere, one of his relatives, his father's Buffalo Keaulana, and, you know, they probably invented surfing somewhere back anyway, or they definitely perfected it. You know, he said, don't define me by my equipment, right? Mm-hmm. And so it is interesting how we have this kind of stereotype, this certain thing that we define as a surfer. I'm like, well, what is a surfer? Do they have to have a Almeric Channel Island board, or is it a thruster or a single fin or what thing? And so we grew up riding so many different pieces of equipment. I mean, we rode McDonald's lunch trays. I mean, we rode pieces of picnic tables. We rode broken boards. We rode, you know, plywood. I mean, we boogie. I mean, so it is. I always am amused by people trying to define a surfer and surfing to one particular discipline. You know, the truth is about innovation. No matter what, whenever you are trying to innovate, people are always going to be discouraging you and thinking that it's, you know, hey, why would you do that, or that's dumb. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard how stupid or how bad the idea was that I was doing, just to have the person, you know, a year or two later do it and think it's the best thing they've ever done. So, you know, I think it's you have to be careful not to be discouraged when you have an idea. I think that's something to be conscious of. You know, a part of the way I grew up kind of made me less discourageable, I would just say. Like, I was like, I didn't really care if people, you know, what they thought, as long as, you know, at least my immediate family and friends, you know, are giving me support. So, but yeah, that, you know, I see that a lot. I see that, you know, oh, this is surfing, that's surfing. It's like, well, first of all, who made them the, you know,
the arbiters of
surfing? And what is the surfing? The surfing is the act of riding a wave, by the way. Like, the act of riding a wave. It doesn't say what you're riding a wave with and how you're riding a wave. Just using energy, flying, you know, using the power of energy. And I mean, at this point in my evolution, foiling is the most amazing wave riding instrument that's ever been created. And in a way, all it is just a big fin. You know, and fin, every board has a fin. Like, hey, your board. And I mean, I like actually riding boards without fins. They're actually faster. So, but this is a giant fin that you're able to ride the fin. Now you just don't even have, now your board's just flying and you're riding a fin. Pretty cool, like pretty amazing. But somebody could go, well, that's not surfing. And and meanwhile, what you're doing, you could only dream of doing. So you miss out on a lot of the stuff while you're so busy concerning yourself with what, you know, what are the, you know, what's the framework of surfing? Like how do you define a surfer? I go, it's like, come on, but that's the human condition, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm doing is the only thing and everything else is wrong.
Well, it's really cool that, cause I definitely feel like in surfing, there's, to some degree, there's maybe on one end, it's a very non-conformist thing, but there's a component of it that's very conformist and
kind of contrary to the whole concept.
Yeah,
amazing in a way. It's like the humans putting their thing on this thing, right? It's like this is supposed to be the freedom of expression.
Yeah,
like you go out and surf a wave how you want, when you want, the whole thing, backwards, upside down, what board, whatever it doesn't, and in a way, but no. The people don't like that.
Yep.
We need to no. Don't be doing that. Don't have freedom to, you know, do it the way you want to. Let's define how, you know, how we're doing, which, I mean, most of it's based out of fear. You know, it's really just based out of fear. People are fearful, and a big piece of it is not wanting to have to learn and be a beginner. People don't want to be beginners. Like, hey, I'm good at this. This is what I ride. I mean, when I was a young man, I remember windsurfing came along, and I was like, wow, amazing. You put a sail on your surfboard, and then all of a sudden you can go at waves and hit them and fly in the air and catch huge waves and do all this crazy stuff. And I told my dad at the time, I said, hey, you got to try this thing. It's amazing. He's like, why would I do that? I'm already good at surfing. I'm like, Well, because it'd be something different, and maybe it'd be good when there wasn't surf, or But and I could understand what he was saying. Like, hey, I don't, why would I do that? I'm already good at this. And for a lot of people, that's what it is, right? It's like, I'm already good at this one thing. Why would I, want to try something new? And I just think that stops us from doing all of the greatest things there are to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that despite maybe some of these pressures that you just said, hey, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it, and judge me if you want, but
you do that a couple times. You do it once, you do it twice. Pretty soon you start to get it. It becomes like a template. You get a pattern. You're like, here we are. We got another one. We got another one of these cool things. We got to keep keep pursuing it and see where it can take us.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a piece of that too is having the insight and the ability to actually see what the potential is before it happens. Like the whole epiphany about towing in and discovering that in the summertime, and then thinking, well, maybe we can get towed onto giant waves. That seeing it first is what made it happen, right? So that's the same with stand-up paddling. It's the same with hydrofoil surfing. I mean, kiting was the same thing. I mean, these are, you just see the potential and what it could be, and then that usually is what gives you the motivation to drive you forward to keep pursuing it, because the process can be discouraging in any innovation. Any kind of innovation can be a discouraging process, because you have an idea, you make a prototype, it breaks, it doesn't work, you try again, it doesn't work, it breaks, you just have and then pretty soon you could just give up, or you can just keep pursuing. So but at the end you're always happy.
I've got 3 questions for you, kind of related to maybe someone's a beginner at surfing, maybe they're intermediate, they're looking to improve their surfing. So I've got 3 questions here. What advice would you give to a surfer who is scared, and this is as someone who's dropped into some of the biggest waves in the world? What advice would you give to a surfer who's scared to, or maybe hesitant to drop into a big wave for them? So that might be,
Could be 3 feet.
3 feet, maybe overhead.
What advice would I give them?
Yeah, because there's a component of fear, component of hesitation. Making that drop is...
Well, we have a saying, he who hesitates is lost, right? So there's no hesitation in dropping in. You either do or you don't.
Yeah.
It's just you don't kind of drop in. Otherwise, that's called going over the falls. And that's a wipeout. But I would say to someone, that wants to catch the biggest wave they've ever ridden, that they, first of all, they're fortunate that they can actually have this thing, that they're going to have such a exhilarating feeling of accomplishment, right? They're going to feel like they've done something, and it's going to be an amazing thing. And so I would say that I would say that my advice would be to take advantage of the opportunity to have an incredible experience. And even if you fail, it's going to be, what we say, there's great honor in a failed attempt, but no honor in no attempt. And so I think you just have to try, and before you know it, you're going to, what do the Beach Boys say? Catch a wave and you're sitting on top of the world.
There you go.
It'll be the ride of your life. And I envy people that have, that are still early on in their fear part. I mean, it always comes back, and no matter who you are, you're going to run into where it is, but it's that's an enviable position, because it means you have a lot more opportunity. If like a medium-sized wave is still scare you, perfect. You can go get scared every day. That's the best thing ever,
Yeah, and I guess it's fresh for them too. It's exciting. A 3-foot wave is exciting.
Exciting. There's not a lot of excitement sometimes going along around here.
Yeah.
Especially not something so productive, right? Something so, there's something productive about that. Something about that experience, about that intimacy, being in the ocean, this experience. It's just like, there's something, when you come back in, you feel like you accomplished something, and that's not easy to find. Like even in your work, in your life on land, it's just, that stuff's not available every day. It's tricky. And so to have it be right there, congratulations.
Yeah. And on a really big day for you, are you ever a bit nervous, or do you ever get scared, or you've just done it so many times? It's
I mean, listen, if I wasn't scared or nervous, I would seriously question where, what I was doing, because it's, I think that to fully understand what you're doing and what giant waves are is to make you, be fearful and respectful and scared. And scared is good. I mean, it just depends on what kind of scared.
Yeah.
Is it a scared of does it give you power and strength and make your vision better scared, or does it make you do dumb things, or does it make you freeze up and get hit by the car? So there's all kinds of different reactions to being scared, but being scared is a very, very important reaction to a situation, especially like a giant wave. Like, that's good. It's a good idea to be scared. Sign of intelligence.
My next question on this one, just for regular surfing, any advice on paddling technique? Maybe how to have your hands, or?
Yeah, well, I've been helping a couple of people paddlers and I describe the technique of throwing your arm, like throwing it and then pulling and throwing and pulling. Like let the arm don't throw the arm, don't bring the arm forward.
Right.
And then usually I like to put my hands on the water, like slide my hands in water. So I describe it like throwing the arm and then keeping your hands on the water as you come forward, something that you can sustain, right? It's a stroke that you can do indefinitely. So you use the turn of your body and throwing your arms. There's definitely an art to paddling. And when you're a surfer, a prone surfer, that's your horsepower, that's your motor. And without a good technique, you're not going to be doing it very long.
Yeah. Last of these kind of three questions, as far as assisting beginners, what do you think is the superior technique to wax a surfboard? I have some sex wax over here, by the way, if you want.
A superior technique, just thorough coverage.
Just throw it on.
No, thorough coverage. You know what I mean? Like it's especially if it's a new board, but thorough coverage. It's all about Yeah. I mean, you're gonna do. You do.
Do you do X's at all, or?
I mean, I don't do an X. I'll go widthwise and then lengthwise and then circles.
Okay.
So, back and forth, up and down, and then circles. Just wherever you get, however to get the good coverage. Nothing like it's wax on, wax off.
There you go.
Right hand, left hand.
Glass on fins or removable fin systems?
Well, removable is just easy because that's where we're at right now. They have such good technology in it. Glass-ons have fillets, and so there's. I mean, I just think it's you might change your fin. You might I think for me, I like boxes are just so easy to use, and they have and then you have fin choice. Then you can switch stuff, and you're not glued into one particular design.
Right.
I mean, if you got an old school, Malibu surf rider that's got a big old 50-50 fin on it and you want to, glass on, knock yourself out, you're retro, whatever, that's fine. But if you're talking about in general for performance, and I mean, it's there's I think every single great surfer in the world is using the boxes. Part of it's because the fillet itself, which is the space between the bottom and the side of the fin, when you fill that in, that creates lift. And so that also will kind of lift your board when you might not want it to. And so, I just think, again, fin selection and it just gives you a lot of options. You can, and most of the time people are playing with so many different fins. You got multiple fins on a board, and boxes are great.
Got it. One question about, getting barreled. So that's kind of considered the pinnacle of surfing for many. Would you rather get barreled, maybe say in a modestly, well, maybe I should be more specific, because modest for you might be very big. But let's say a wave capable of maybe a crouch down barrel. Would you rather get barreled or surf a giant wave but has no barrel?
Oh, I'm the giant wave guy.
Giant wave guy. Okay.
I mean, listen, I like getting barreled, but nothing like going fast.
Got it.
Something about speed that I told somebody, I go, when you're going really fast, like extremely fast, especially for surfing, it's like being barreled the whole time. It becomes the barrel. That's the whole thing, is that speed becomes the barrel, and then it's extended. Then there's a longer period of time, because barrels, in most of the time are pretty short-lived, right? I mean, there's nothing like being inside the wave and tube riding. There's no doubt that tube riding is, one of the unique things to do on Earth. But going fast on a giant wave, that works for me.
And maybe, I mean, like that wave that we saw earlier at Teahupoo, maybe you can do both sometimes.
Yeah, there's always that. But going fast is really right now we're doing a lot of going fast because of the foils. So the foils are allowing us to go faster and faster. Speed is an addiction, right? Going fast is something that humans like. Yeah. Whether you're in Formula One or you're in downhill skiing or, whatever it is, going fast is, there's just something about going fast that works, especially on a wave. It's really, because it's alive. And so there's just so many things happening. The racetrack's constantly moving. Yeah. And so you've been surfing pretty much your whole life. I guess in your early adulthood, how did you finance that? Any way I could. Any subsidize it with arborist, excavation, tractor, whatever. Just any. Listen, when I was young, I had a chance to do some modeling. I modeled. If I could be in a film, I'd be in a film. I would do it any way I could to subsidize it, because it was, that was the mission, right? Yeah. The mission was just be in the water and get in the water and continue. And so I would do whatever it took to make it happen. I definitely was never strayed away from working to, when the opportunity arose. Right. Yeah, you mentioned you did some acting. You were in, was it 007, was it GoldenEye or Die Another Day? Yeah. And you were the stunt double. Was that the one? We did the opening sequence. The opening sequence when we surfed into the camp. We surfed we rode these waves we were in camouflage wetsuits, and we surfed into the compound. And then, was that the one with all the icebergs in the water? No, they did that. They did a kiting. They had a kiting segment later, but this was at the very beginning. This was the opening sequence. Right. Okay. Opening sequence at night. So it was a night thing, and we did that. We did that actually at Jaws, and we did it with Dave Kalama, Derek Donor, and myself. The three of us rode waves together, like we were all three on the wave, and actually we had to do some wiping out scenes for that, a bunch of crashing, which we never would do. So we had to kind of figure out how to crash on the wave and not get hurt, and then we all kind of got pretty pounded. And each time one of us got a real bad crash, we stopped, and then the next guy, and eventually everybody went to the sidelines. But yeah, no, that was one of those things, that was another one of those things. I know Pierce Brosnan. He's a friend, and he's in Malibu, he got connected. He was talking about needing a surfer somebody to play, and some friend of mine that he knew said, "Hey, why don't you try to see if you can get these guys to do it?" And so nice. That was nice. It was a good opportunity for us, it was our production company who shot the thing. So we had our camera guys, our helicopter guys, it was our shoot pretty much. Oh, nice. To provide for them. So that was good. I've been involved in a lot of films just because they've shot films in Hawaii since I was a child. So I've been around all these film productions, and had little parts here and there, and over the years that have been they've been helpful. Nice. Just got two more questions for you, just because
got to wrap up here pretty soon, but saw you talk about nose breathing. That's pretty bad, apparently.
Pretty bad?
Pretty bad to breathe through your nose.
No.
Or sorry, I got it mixed up. To breathe through, to be a mouth breather. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Well, nose. I mean, listen, we're supposed to breathe through our noses. That's that's probably an incredible, one of the simplest like health benefit, something you can do to benefit your health in a serious way. Your sinuses emit a gas that helps you absorb oxygen. You filter the air, you reduce the volume, you become more CO2 tolerant. There's just a bunch of things. So yeah, we do we do breath work in general, like a lot of breath works. I mean, I always tell people, listen, everybody does breath work because without breathing, you're not alive. And so in a way, breathing is, probably, well, I would say is the most, in the priority of living is the most important, right? It's above water, it's above food. So without breathing, it's over. And so the more consciousness you can bring to your breath, the better. I mean, we know it from surfing, how important it is, because when you get held under, your air is important. So we know that. So we spend some time doing breath work. We incorporate breath work in our training. Nose breathing is definitely a big piece of what we do. I mean, if you look at the the monks, if you look at the yogis, I mean, you look at a lot of these people that are doing conscious breath work. There's a spiritual piece to it. There's a health benefit. There's a bunch of, there's a performance benefit, like a big performance benefit. So, for people to learn how to breathe in their sleep, like sleep and breathe through their nose, very beneficial.
Do you sleep on your back or side? Or?
I'm like a
stomach
sardine. I flop all over the place.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I've heard I think apparently back sleeping is the best. I just find it hard to do that. Before I get to my last question,
the jury's still out about that.
Really? Okay.
Well, in my opinion, I'd be like, you would never sleep on your back if you were in nature because you wouldn't expose your stomach.
Oh, interesting.
So
interesting.
I know people go, yeah, but it's all about that. I go, I don't know. If you were sleeping in the jungle somewhere, you wouldn't be sleeping on your back. You'd leave your guts and everything wide open. You'd be. The back would be, you'd be better on the, but
interesting.
More importantly, I think than sleeping on your back would be breathing through your nose.
Got it. So yeah, just I guess before I get to my last question, is there anything that we can plug for you? You've got your XPT, you've got Laird Superfoods, you've written a couple books. Is there anything you'd want to?
I mean, it's all good.
Sure.
I the companies that you said, that's the fitness one. And then XPT is the fitness one, obviously, and then Superfood's some crazy good stuff. I wouldn't plug it. I would just tell people, listen, if you haven't tried that stuff, it's amazing. It started out of just my own personal recipe, and it's got change your life, your coffee drinking life for sure, your matcha, your chai, your hydration. We have a thing called the daily ritual, so it's a bunch of different stuff you can drink that gives you a bunch of minerals and other things, performance mushrooms, some crazy stuff. And I have an apparel line, Laird Apparel, that has some great stuff in there as well. But no, those are the companies, but those are going. We're I'm just here to have a conversation.
Sweet.
That's what I'm pushing.
Yeah. And later tonight you are doing a speaking engagement with the UCSB Arts and Lectures. Is it sold out? Can people, I don't know if they're watching, can they still get tickets?
I think it has something to do I know it has something to do with UCSB's surf team. So I'm doing something with them, and then I'm doing like a Q&A, and I don't know the if it's sold out or not, or
sure.
what the process is, if they're selling tickets for that particular thing or not.
Sure.
But it's at the Arlington, theater, and I'm going to have, I did a documentary called Take Every Wave, and Rory Kennedy, who's a documentarian, she's going to be asking questions tonight, so we're going to do a Q&A. It would be nice to see her, and
Awesome. Last question.
Here we go.
Is surfing better than sex?
You see how long it took me? I had to think about it. I would say no, yes, or yes, no. Both of those. Yes, no, and no, yes.
Why not both?
I would be, you can't compare them. You can't, you can't compare them, but
It's a good answer.
But I know both. I know that without either one of them, it wouldn't be good.
Good answer. Good answer. Laird, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
It was great. And guys, check him out. We have all his links in the description. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will.